Hello everyone! Today, we'll be talking about Agile User Story. We'll cover what it is, why is it needed, how is it written, who writes it, and when do we write it. So, let's get straight into it. To begin, what is a user story? Simply put, a user story is the smallest piece of work, which represents some value to an end user. It contains elements, such as title, description, and acceptance criteria. We're going to take a deeper look at how those elements come into play. The title of a user story follows a basic formula. As A, to represent a role. I want, is to represent an objective. So that, to represent the motivation behind the objective. The user story defines the functionality, which is represented as a persona, hence the role, meaning who are we doing this for. Similarly, action, which is the objective, meaning the task that is performed by the role. The motivation is represented by need, meaning to satisfy the role's need by completing the objective. Here's an example of what could be a user story. As a customer, I want to see all available restaurants in my area, so that I can pick the one closest to me. Let's move on to the description. It is helpful to give context to the user story. The description usually contains a brief explanation of the user journey, few use cases, and any general information that helps for better understanding of the title. Description shouldn't have 1,000 words, but it should contain any bit of context that helps clarify what is being expressed, such as pictures or links to the designer process. Now, let's look at our last element here, acceptance criteria. They help understand some key characteristics that require special attention during implementation. In other words, they are a set of conditions that help validate the implementation of a user story, and to confirm that it is completed. Going through the acceptance criteria with the team, at the time of writing the user story, is the best way to fully develop the functionality. We'll take our previous example. As a customer, I want to see all available restaurants in my area, so that I can pick the one closest to me. Acceptance criteria for this user story could be, the app shows restaurants within an area of 6 miles from the customer. The app shows different varieties of food within the area of the customer. The customer is able to check the ratings of the restaurants through the application, and as well as their menu. Now, let's understand, why do we need to write user stories? What benefits does it provide? User stories originated from a need to break down projects into smaller incremental segments, for sprints and iterations. If you are familiar with an Agile framework, then most probably you are aware of the fact that both Scrum and Kanban teams greatly benefit from writing user stories. Let's break it down further. In Scrum, user stories are added to the sprint backlog, and are worked on over the duration of the sprints. In Kanban, teams accumulate stories in a backlog, and then run them, one by one, through their workflow. Working on user stories helps turn teams make estimations, prioritize, and plan sprints, leading to more flexibility, as well as greater agility. User stories has helped company teams learn how to manage work in progress, which helps them to constantly stay on track, and find their workflows. We'll go over some more user story benefits, common to all Agile teams. User stories help keep the team focused on the user, and the business value. It also helps to make the product not only well built, from the technical perspective, but as well as useful to the end users. A user story enables collaboration. With an end goal defined, the team can work together to decide the best approach to serve the user and meet that goal. It enables creativity. User stories encourage the team to think critically and creatively on how best to solve the end goal. User stories help make the project more manageable. It is the best way to work with small, inestimable element, rather than with big complex tasks. Lastly, it inspires the team, and creates momentum. With each story closed, the team loves a feeling of a small win, which motivates them to work even more efficiently. Let's go over how to write a user story. The common user story template includes the user, action, and the value. It typically follows this format, as a user, I want, an action, so that a value is achieved. Before writing a user story, we should know who the end users are, or the persona of our product. But most importantly, recognizing the needs of what we are trying to resolve. Keep in mind, The main focus here is the user, not the developers nor the product owner. Each story must bring a value to some group of our end users. Be empathetic, meaning consider the user's habits, what issue our product is going to help resolve for the user, and how we can make this path easier and faster. Now, let's define what functionality each user expects. It's important to remember that, when writing an action for a user story, have one action per story. For example, if writing, as a customer, I want to find the nearest gas station, and fill up gas in my car. It is better to split it into two different user stories. So, then one would be, as a customer, I want to find the nearest gas station, and the other one would be, as a customer, I want to fill up gas in my car. Remember to describe an intention rather than a feature. For example, instead of writing, I want to manage my profile, we should create a few stories like, I want to be able to register my profile, I want to be able to upload my profile picture, I want to share my profile with my friends. This way, each user story will have a different value. The last thing here is a value. When implicating it, think about the value that the users will get after performing an action. What would be the overall benefits that they are trying to achieve? What is a major issue that needs to be solved? Each story should contribute to the general goal of our products. If we cannot answer what value a user story brings to the end users as well as our products, then we must re-evaluate our purpose and know what we are doing wrong. Given how essential user stories are to the Agile approach, it brings many benefits to the projects. However, it's important to write them accurately. Good user stories follow the INVEST criteria. Let's break it down. Independent, meaning a user story is independent from other user stories, they can be developed in any order. User stories are negotiable, there must be a conversation between clients and development team, not closed contracts. So, the conversation remains open. Valuable, a user story must add value to the product. Estimable, meaning each user story must be able to be estimated, in a relative sizing such as story point or t-shirt sizing. User stories must be small enough to fit one sprint, and to be completed. Final point here is, testable, meaning each user story must be able to be validated and tested. These are the success points for an exemplary user story. Now, let's discuss, who writes the user stories. The product owner has the responsibility to make sure a product backlog of user stories exists, however it doesn't mean that the product owner is the one who creates user stories. The more people join in the conversation, the better, and anyone can contribute and write user stories. In this case, the product owner is responsible to confirm that they are matching the INVEST criteria, and to prioritize those user stories in the backlog. Finally, let's talk about, when do we write user stories? User stories are written during the entire life cycle of the product. Usually a story written in workshop is held at the start. The team members participate with the goal of creating a product backlog that describes a functionality to be added over the course of the product development. Some of these user stories will be big, which is later split into smaller ones that can fit into a single iteration. In addition, new user stories can be written and added to the product backlog at any time, by anyone. A few important tips to keep in mind. Putting users first is a key element in Agile mindset, since Agile is a user-centered approach. It shifts the focus from coding and designing, to delivering real value to the end users. User stories put actual end users at the center of the conversation. User stories use non-technical language, and provides context for the team, which lets them determine what benefits the products they are trying to give to their target audience. User stories opens door for collaboration and creativity, which leads to better production overall. A user story describes the what, and the why. Let's summarize what we learned today. We covered, what are user stories, why do we write user stories and their importance, how do we write user stories, who is responsible for writing them, and when is it written. We hope this helped you understand, and grasp the concept of Agile user stories. Thanks for watching, don't forget to leave us a like, share with people who may benefit from it, as well as comment below what other topics you'd like us to cover, and please do subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for notifications on our latest videos. We offer training, staffing and services. Contact us at 847-350-9034, to receive a free career consulting session. Take care.